In 1966, the American intermediate car market was a battlefield, and Ford was tired of losing. For 2 years, the Pontiac GTO had been the undisputed heavyweight champion of the suburban street scene, leaving Ford's mid-sized Fairlane looking like a sensible, albeit boring, commuter car. But behind the closed doors of Dearborn, the total performance mandate was in full swing. Ford didn't just want to compete, they wanted to humiliate the competition. The result was the 1966 Ford Fairlane GT, a car that was wider, lower, and more aggressive than anything that had ever worn the Fairlane nameplate. This wasn't just a styling exercise. By 1966, the youth market didn't just want chrome, they wanted displacement. The Mustang had proven that small cars could sell, but the Fairlane GT was built for the man who found the Mustang too cramped and the Galaxy too bloated. It was the Goldilocks of the muscle car era. But here is the part that most people miss. Ford didn't just throw a big engine in a mid-sized car and call it a day. They re-engineered the entire platform to handle the kind of violence a high-torque V8 could inflict on a chassis. Under that twin-scooped hood sat the heart of the beast, the 390 cubic inch Thunderbird Special V8. To the uninitiated, the 390 might have seemed like just another big block, but for those who knew their FE engine family, this was the S code. It was a masterpiece of iron and airflow. With a 4.05-inch bore and a 3.78-inch stroke, it was designed for one thing: torque. Ford officially rated it at 335 horsepower and 427 pound-feet of torque. But here's where it gets interesting. If you talk to the old-timers who ran these at the NHRA drags in the late 60s, they'll tell you those numbers were a calculated lie to keep the insurance adjusters from knocking on your door. In reality, with a little tuning to that 4-barrel Holley 1450 carburetor, these engines were pushing much closer to 360 or 370 horses right off the showroom floor. But power is useless if you can't get it to the pavement. Most people miss the fact that the Fairlane GT came standard with a special heavy-duty suspension package that wasn't available on the base models. We're talking about higher-rate coil springs in the front, extra leaf springs in the rear, and a massive 0.84-inch front stabilizer bar. It was built to corner flat, which was a direct jab at the Pontiac GTO, a car notorious for its boat-like handling in the twisties. Ford wanted a car that could win at the drag strip on Friday night and still handle a mountain road on Saturday morning. And then there was the transmission. If you ordered the GTA version, you were getting the Sportshift Cruise-O-Matic. Now in the mid-60s, an automatic in a muscle car was often seen as a compromise for people who couldn't drive a stick. But Ford changed the rules. The Sportshift allowed you to manually hold the car in first or second gear, giving you the control of a manual with the consistency of an automatic. It was a bracket racer's dream. You could leave the line in first, slam it into second at 5,000 RPM, and third at 5,500, all without ever lifting your foot off the gas or touching a clutch pedal. But even with all that tech, the 1966 Fairlane GT was, first and foremost, a triumph of design. This was the year Ford adopted the Coke bottle styling, that subtle swell in the rear quarter panels that made the car look like it was lunging forward even when it was parked. The stacked vertical headlights gave it a little brother resemblance to the full-size Galaxy, but on the Fairlane's narrower body, it looked infinitely more predatory. Step inside, and you were greeted by an interior that felt more like a cockpit than a cabin. Bucket seats were standard, separated by a sleek center console. The dashboard featured a long horizontal speedometer that went up to 120 miles per hour, a needle that many owners pushed to the limit on the newly built Eisenhower interstate system. But that's when things started to get complicated for Ford. You see, 1966 was a peak year for the total performance marketing campaign, but it was also the beginning of the end for the pure, unregulated muscle car. The cultural context of America was shifting. The muscle car wars were in full swing, but so were the early whispers of safety regulations and emission standards. Ford was winning on the NASCAR tracks with drivers like Cale Yarborough, but on the streets, they were starting to face a new kind of enemy: the insurance industry. By late 1966, insurance premiums for GT-badged cars were skyrocketing, and that's when Ford made a move that still puzzles historians today. While the 390 GT GT was a sales success, moving over 37,000 units in its debut year. Ford decided to pull the rug out from under it. In 1967, they began offering the 390 in the Mustang. Suddenly, the Fairlane GT had a younger, sexier sibling stealing its lunch. Why buy the family-sized muscle car when you could get the same engine in the car that was on the cover of every magazine in the country? Most people miss this transition, but it was the moment the Fairlane started to lose its identity. But before it faded into the shadow of the Mustang, the 1966 Fairlane had one more trick up its sleeve: the legendary R code. While the GT was the street king, Ford produced 57 special Fairlane 500s equipped with the 427 cubic inch medium riser V8. This was a pure race car disguised as a sedan. It had a lift-off fiberglass hood with a massive forward-facing scoop, no radio, no heater, and no sound deadening. It was built for one purpose: to win the NHRA Superstock World Championship. These 57 cars are the holy grails of the Fairlane world, often fetching over $200,000 at modern auctions. So, why did the Fairlane GT eventually disappear? By 1968, the Fairlane name was being phased out in favor of the Torino. The GT badge moved to the new, larger body style, and the nimble, aggressive character of the 66 model was lost to the trend of making cars bigger and heavier. The 1966 model remains a one-year-only aesthetic peak. It was the last year the Fairlane felt like a precision tool rather than a blunt instrument. Today, the 1966 Fairlane GT is finally getting the respect it deserves. For decades, it lived in the shadow of the Mustang and the GTO, but collectors are realizing that the build quality and the total performance engineering of these cars were second to none. If you find one with the original S-Code engine and the top-loader 4-speed manual, you aren't just looking at a car, you're looking at a time capsule of an era when Ford was truly the king of the road. But here is the final twist that most people, even seasoned Ford fans, don't know. While the GT was synonymous with the 390, Ford actually produced a handful of Fairlane GTs equipped with the small block 289. They are incredibly rare, and they were built primarily for buyers who wanted the GT look and handling without the heavy insurance surcharges of the big block. If you ever see a GT badge on a 289 Fairlane, don't assume it's a fake. It might just be one of the rarest factory insurance beaters ever made. The 1966 Fairlane GT was a car built to beat everything in its class, and for one glorious year, it did exactly that. It captured the spirit of an America that was obsessed with speed, style, and the pursuit of the perfect quarter-mile time. It was a gentleman's express with a hooligan's heart. I want to hear from the people who were there. Did you have a 390 GT in high school? Did you ever square off against a Chevelle and come out on top? Drop a comment below and let's keep the history of these incredible machines alive. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Ford's total performance history, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more stories from the golden age of American iron coming your way. Until next time, keep the shiny side up and the pedal to the metal.